Hey everybody. So thought I'd do a Surreal Photoshop composite. Show you how I create my digital art. And could be hit or miss, could be a good one, could be a bad one. We will see, but I'm going to jump right in and create a Surreal Photoshop composite. And before I begin, just to remind you to subscribe for Photoshop and Lightroom tutorials and live streams, Digital Art Drew. Please subscribe. That's Digital Art Drew. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into Photoshop. So you should be seeing my screen and my layers panel. I'm going to put a little earbud in for music. And then we're going to jump into quite the variety of Photoshop compositing. Bear with me. I'm trying to find some good music here. There we go. Starting now. Okay, cool. So as you can see is a range of images. So about 4 different images. And I'm just going to start compositing, pretty much show you how I do it bit by bit. Okay, so I have a bunch of actions set up. So as you can see here at the top, I have one for 12 by 12. And it already even has like my name, digital art by Andrew Kavanagh. And all I need to do is select in front of that and whatever I want. So I'll just call it Surreal now. It just gives me that. And if you didn't know how to do that, you would basically just go to File, New, and up would come the new document. And as you can see here, I have a preset for my recent item for 3600 by 3600 pixel at 300 ppi. And I would just give it a title. But you can also set up other different kind of custom presets, or you can change the width, the height, and the resolution here on the right. Okay, so here I am with that. Let me turn the music down. And then what I do is I want to start with a bit of a kind of textured, colored background. So I have this photo that I took of some marble. Just shift drag it to the middle. So in this case, you'll see that it's a different kind of resolution. So what I do is I will right click and convert that to a smart object. Command T for transform, and then holding Option on a Mac, Alt on a PC, I pull up the corner, keep pulling until it hits the edges. Hit Enter, Return, and clicking on the image, holding the Shift key, I can pull it down to kind of structure it where I want it to be. I like that. And I don't need it to be a smart object anymore. I only do that so that it keeps the original information when I resize. So I right click and choose Rasterize Layer. And now it just says Layer 1. So I hit F key a couple times. Now close this image. Now the other range of images are from pixels. So you notice it says pixels in front of each of the different images. So I'm going to start with this image, and I just shift drag it into this, hit the F key. So I'm just focusing on this one image. Command T to get the transform tool, and then Command 0 on a Mac, Control 0 on a PC, which shows me the bounding box, and then Option drag down so I can resize it, Enter, Return, and then just using the Move tool, just kind of seeing how much information I want, top or bottom. Okay, good. Okay, so I like that, but I want it to be even more blue. So I'm going to go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. And it brings it up in the Camera Raw panel, and it defaults to color grading because that's where I was last. You might start off in the basic panel. So I'll just show you that color grading is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. And then there's different options for midtones, shadows, highlights. And I want the top right one for global. And so by choosing global, I can click on any color and add that to the overall color of the composite. And as you can see, when I click here in the blue, if it's to the left, it's kind of a strong blue, and you'll see that the saturation is 85. So it moves with me clicking that point and moving it to the right or left. So if it's to the left, it's saturated. To the right, towards 0 is less saturation, and you can see it moves with the slider accordingly. Okay. So then at that point, I like it. So I just hit OK. Jumps back. If I go to my history panel, you can see that's before, that's after. So it's a nice blue tinge that I wanted. Then already what I can start doing is I'm already in the move tool, and I can cycle through the layer blending modes by pressing Shift plus while I'm in the move tool. So darken, multiply. I'm just pretty much looking for what is a kind of nice mix. So this is Lighten, which I tend to use a lot. So that shows the definition of the buildings, but also the texture and some of the color of the marble underneath. I want it a little bit more contrasty, so I'm going to cycle through a bit more. Kind of like that one. That's soft light. I keep cycling through just to see what all my options are first. I always make a note of what I like. So soft light was successful. So if I cycle through and the rest aren't that good, I just remember to just go directly to soft light, not overlay, soft light. Hit the F key a couple times. And then I want to use this image. So Command J on a Mac, Control J on a PC. Hit the F key. I want to get rid of that strange massage shape. So I just choose the lasso tool, make a quick selection, and then I have a action where I can just do a simple F6 key for content aware fill. When I do that, it reads the image, and using Adobe Sensei Artificial Intelligence, it's supposed to read it and get rid of it. But in this case, it kind of made it more abstract. So zoom in, do Command D, and I might just choose an area first, one section, and then do F6 key. If that doesn't work well, I can do another area again. And then this time, go down to underneath where the spot healing brush is. I can choose the patch tool. And then from the patch tool, I can click and drag that to another area. It does a pretty good job, makes it a little kind of soft. But yeah, it's not doing the best job. And then now when I go back to select that and do the F6 key with my action, it does a pretty good job on the content aware fill. And even though this is kind of blurry looking, it doesn't need to be perfect. I'm just trying to kind of clear it up around the neck area. So that's pretty good. Before I bring this image over, I want to do a couple things. So one is I go to my adjustments. So I have my adjustments panel. I want to do a conversion to black and white. So I just hover over these and it changes the name, as you can see. And so the middle one I know is black and white. So as I do that, it converts it to black and white. And then it's still reading the color in the image, as you can see here, reds, yellows, greens, cyans, blues, magentas. But to be able to bump up the contrast by it reading the color, instead of guessing what colors are where, I can just choose this target adjustment tool here in the top left. And as I click, oops, it didn't take it. So let me go back, double click here to bring it back open. You make sure it's highlighted. Yep. Then you have the eyedropper when it's highlighted. So that I can go here, and when I click and pull to the left, I can add a little bit more contrast there. Go to the highlights, click and pull to the right, add more contrast there. Go to the darks of the hair, pull that a little bit left. So now it has a bit more contrast. And if I'm concerned about this area by the neck standing out, what I'm going to do is first do a Command E to merge the black and white adjustment layer to the copied layer. So that's now just the top layer, layer 1. And with the brush selected, I just hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt on a PC, and then I just paint over that area to clean it up. Doesn't have to be perfect. I just want it to be clean. Okay, so I hit F a couple times. And before I do that, I know I don't need the whole image. So I hit C for crop, crop down, get rid of the hand, crop in, just want to focus on the face. Enter return, hit the V key, move it over. In the layers panel, choose layer 1, holding shift key, I drag it over, hit the F key in that composite, and then Command T in that top layer, and then holding the Option key on a Mac, Alt on a PC, pull down from the top left. And then also I hover my cursor to the top right tab, and then I can rotate it a little bit. So something like that. Then looking at my image, I once again want to cycle through the layer blending modes. So I'm in the Move tool, holding Shift plus. I can cycle through and just see what interacts best. The soft light, lighten, that's hard light, that's not bad. Cycle through. I find the white background distracting. So I go back from linear light back to normal. And then a quick way to get rid of the white area is I double click on the layer, and up comes the layer style with the blend if options at the bottom. And then where it says this layer, I just option click the tab on a Mac, it splits it. And as I move it to left, it starts pulling away the white. And then I pull the right one to make it more of a kind of smoother transition. Just be aware that the further you go, it will pick up other highlighted areas like on the cheek. So I'm just pulling them left to get rid of that white that's to the left of the image. Hit OK. It's pretty good. And then back to layer blending modes. So I'm in the Move tool. I just hold Shift plus, cycle through. It's not bad. I like that one, even though it's a little abstract. But okay, so I like this one, but what I'll do is that's linear light. And then what I will do is I will make sure that I add a layer mask at the bottom by clicking on that icon. You'll see the layer mask on the right. And then hit D for default. And then when it's default, I hit the X key. So black is the foreground color. Choose a brush. And then the opacity up in the options bar is at 100, but the flow is 13. I just hover over the word flow, pull to the left, and make it more like a 9. And then as I paint with black, I can paint information through. So I'm letting the buildings come through, especially the black of her hair. Kind of letting it blend through. And then a little bit on the forehead and the cheek. A little bit on the edges. So what I might do is clicking the left bracket on my keyboard, I get a smaller brush, and I'm going to pull over the word flow to the right to about 39, 41. 41 is good. And I'm going to go to the edges and paint away some of that kind of harder white edge so it blends in a little bit better. There we go. I'm using a Wacom tablet, so I'm holding a pen to brush it in, so it feels like I'm really painting. And the little trick is when you want to do like a straight line, let me zoom in, like forehead, you click, and then if you hold the shift key, it follows a straight line. So it's a nice way to do clean painting or cleaning up selections. Okay, Command minus a couple times. And I'm thinking I want to offset, and then after all that I've done, I should save this. So I'm going to do a quick save. So I'm going to go to just desktop, Surreal, digital art. And I want to offset this from the background, the face. Zoom in a little bit. And then I'm going to open up the Hue Saturation, which is normally under Image Adjustments, Hue Saturation. But what I'm going to do, make sure you're in the layer, not the layer mask, I'm just going to do a Command U on a Mac, Control U on a PC, and then the Hue Saturation panel comes up. And then what I can do is I can either move the hue to change the color a bit, which is not really doing much. But if I check colorize, why isn't it letting me do that now? Okay, now that I do colorize, it's jumped to the reds. So whatever I move the hue, it goes through a range of colors. So here's kind of like a reddish magenta. So I can choose how strong that is. So saturation at 6 is subtle. And as I go further, I can make it pretty crazy neon, but I'll do it around maybe like 14. No, maybe a little bit more. Maybe 17, 18. Yep. Okay. Make sure I do a save on that. Hit the F key a couple times. Back to this one. Close that. Just hit the dot. Don't save. I don't need this either. So I found this crazy image on Pexels, and I thought this would be perfect for a Surreal Composite. So all I do is I go over to the Layers panel when I'm in this image from Pexels, and I do a Command J to make a copy, turn off the background, and then first what I do is choose the C for crop, and I'm going to crop in pretty tight, and then hit Enter, Return. And then while I'm here, hit the F key, and then V for Move Tool. And then while I'm here, I could go through those series of selection tools, but I'm a big fan of going to Window and going to, I think, Properties. Yep. And under Properties, it might look like this when you first open it. So let me just kind of review this with you. So it might even look like this when you open up Properties. And so what you need to do is you need to go to the bottom, and when you see the double arrows, you pull down to expand, and then you click Quick Actions, and you have two options, Remove Background or Select Subject. So if I click on Remove Background, it does a pretty good job knocking out the background. Now, what I might do, though, is before I bring this image over, try like the box. So what I might do is see if I can duplicate his right arm, bring it over to his left. So I'm in the layer mask on the right, and then I just choose my lasso tool, L, make a loose selection around the box, and doing an Option Delete, Alt Delete on a PC. So Option Delete on a Mac, Alt Delete on a PC. I can fill to knock that out. And then I just do Command plus times spacebar to move over that lasso tool and make a loose selection around the hand. And then right click and choose feather. Maybe I'll feather it by 3 so it has a softer edge so it will blend a little bit. Make sure in the layers panel, let me show you there, that you're back in the image. So when you click on the image will have the white frame around it as opposed to the white frame around the layer mask. So you want it around the image. And then I can do a Command J, and it creates a copy of the selection. Weird thing though is it gets rid of the layer mask, so that's interesting. So I might have to just kind of clean that up real quick. So what I then do is go over and then zoom out again. Zoom in a little bit. I'm going to click on the add layer mask icon at the bottom. And then in this case, I'm going to use one of these selection tools. So quick selection tool, I go around the edge of the hand, hit the left bracket to make it a bit smaller. So it's a smaller brush. And then go around. If it overlapped on the thumb, I just hold down the Option key and drag up. And gently go back around the edges. Select. So I'm not getting too close to the subject, but it still can overlap. So when it does, I hold down the Option key and then it gets a minus sign on the brush. And then it will subtract from it. So then it defaults back to the plus sign. So then I just add around the edge. And then I can hit the Q key to see how well the selection is. So in this case, I can either hit Q again and holding Option, I can paint on the top of the hand to clean up that area. Oops. But if it's a little stubborn, I can always hit Q, choose a brush, left bracket to make it smaller. And I want the flow to be 100 and the opacity 100. And then when I paint with white as my foreground, I will be erasing from areas. And if I switch by pressing the X key, black as a foreground, I can paint in the selection. So anything that's red will be the selection. Just making sure it's got the whole area. So I hit Q again, and then I hover. I hit the M for marquee, and then I hover, and I choose feather, maybe 2. Then I make sure I go back to the layer mask. So that now has a white frame around it. Zoom back out, and I hold down Option Delete to delete that. Command D to deselect. Choose a brush, or bracket to make it a little bit larger, and then paint with black as foreground. I can clean up that kind of outline that I created. So there. Go down. Paint. Maybe I'll clean up that. Yep. Okay. So you can't really see the difference because it's right on top of it. But when I go like this, you'll see it's a duplicate. So Command T, then right click, and I say flip horizontal. And then I just kind of measure it up and then go to the corner where I see the double arrow so I can rotate. So I'm just trying to get it to fit. And then I might hold Shift and then pull out a little bit to make it a little bit larger so it matches up. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I want it to be somewhat realistic. Now, if I wanted to make sure that the arms are pretty much around the same area, if I go up to my rulers at the top and I click and pull down, I can pull down to where that hand is. And then I can click on this one and then just use my up arrow to nudge it a little bit. And I can go back down to the silver figure, go back to the layer mask, has a white border around it. And then with the brush, I can go and clean up that excess in the background. A little too much there, so I switch by hitting the X key to white and then paint that back. That's pretty good. So all I do is I choose the top one, shift click the bottom one, Command E on a Mac, Control E on a PC, makes it one layer. With the move tool, I grab the guide and just pull it up to get rid of it. Command minus, there it is. Hit F key a couple times, shift drag so it's in the center, hit F. So here it is there. So one thing I might want to work on with him is the sense of lighting or contrast. So while I'm on that top layer, layer 4 of the Silverman, I just do a Command M on a Mac, Control M on a PC, brings up curves. And then as I pull the midtones up, I'm lightening it overall. Top right is the highlights, makes the highlights even brighter. Maybe bring the midtones down. Oops. Didn't want to add another point. Just click on that point, pull down. And then in the bottom left areas, I pull down and darkening my darks a little, just for contrast. Make sure V for move tool if I'm not already there. And then I hold the Shift plus key. I can cycle through the layer blending modes. There's Lighten. I kind of like that, where it adds a little bit of the kind of magenta color to it. Just keep going through. Shift. That one's kind of nice too, blue. And then what I can do to make sure I select that layer sometimes, instead of just clicking, you can also do Command T, so then you have a bounding box and you can move them around. Okay. Command S, save what I have so far. Just inspecting my layers to see. So I see a little remnant at the bottom of the portrait. So I click on the layer mask, brush, right bracket to make it a little bit larger, and then X to make black my foreground color. I can paint away that. And make my brush a bit bigger by hitting the right bracket. Pull the flow down in the top down to around 13, and then paint a little bit more to kind of blend some of the image through even more. Okay. And then that's pretty good. And then the only thing is I might want to play with color. So what I do is I choose the top layer. I'm in my move tool, and then I press on a Mac Command Option Shift E, which I believe would be Control Alt Shift E on a PC. And that creates a new composite layer on the top. So that's a composite layer of everything. And then I can go to Filter, Camera Raw, and then I do Command minus. And I believe I have my highlight clipping warning on, so I just turn that off. I'm more concerned about the creativity of this than I am it being true, the highlights not being blown out or the darks being too dark. So then what I do is at this point, I want to jump back down to color grading. And instead of doing the global, which is just color for everything, I do want to focus on the different midtones, shadows, highlights. But instead of this view, which is a smaller view, I like these icons up top. So if I click here for the shadows, I have a bigger view of it. And so utilizing that kind of magenta where the darks are leaning towards, I might press down there and then just pull it back a little bit. So saturation of like 60. And then for highlights, I click over here on the right, and then maybe I'll add some green to it. But I don't want it to take over the whole thing. So as I click that circle and pull towards the middle, you'll see the saturation slider starts moving left down to like 30, maybe 42. Go back here, 42, 44. And then I could even do midtones if I want. So maybe I could change some of the kind of bluish tone. It's a bit strong. So I click first, and then as I click and pull that point towards the middle, you can see it's lowering the saturation slider too. So making it down to like 40, 38 to 40, 41, 40. That's good. And then when I hit OK, you'll see that like this is before and this is after. It's just kind of accentuates some of the colors more. And then if I liked some of the original, but I didn't like some of the other colors, I'm in the top layer, composite layer. I click the Add Layer Mask icon. You see a layer mask pop up. B for brush, right bracket to make it a little bit larger. Flow is fine at 13. And then with black as my foreground color, I just turn the eye on and off, and I decide I want some of that green more of the original. So I paint in this area to bring some of that green back a little bit more. And I turn the eye on and off to see if there's any other ones. So I might like some of the original blue in some of the areas of the building. So left building, I paint, bring back. Left bottom to bring back. Maybe around the face. I like the kind of highlighted area of the right building. It's got a little bit of magenta. So I'm still in that layer mask. I just paint over that area and a little bit of magenta comes through there. Bit abstract, but kind of painterly looking. So this was a quick Photoshop Surreal composite. Hope you liked, and just kind of showing my process. Some of my images sometimes are tighter, sometimes they're a bit more painterly or looser, but I just wanted to kind of show you my general process in doing a Surreal Photoshop composite. Thank you very much, and make sure you subscribe for Photoshop and Lightroom tutorials and live streams. Digital Art Drew. That's Digital Art Drew on YouTube. Thank you very much, everybody.